Hi, Jim here, just dropping in before this week's episode to tell you about my latest movie, The Apocalypse Box. It's a horror film and I'd love for you to check it out. If you go to apocalypsebox.co.uk, you can find all the links on where you can watch the movie. Right, let's get on with this week's episode. Hi, Jim here, and you're listening to the Honest Filmmaker podcast, career advice from people in the business. This week I'm speaking to television actor Tom Butcher. Tom's best known for his leading roles in popular TV dramas The Bill and Doctors. Butcher's dedication to his craft and his ability to bring depth to his characters have earned him acclaim from audiences and critics alike. Tom also appears in my latest feature film, The Apocalypse Box, so I thought this was a great opportunity to sit down with Tom, talk about all those years working on Bill, working on Doctors, then moving into theatre, and have a general chat about what it was like working in the industry and working on big shows that have fast turnarounds, some of which are on every single day of the week. We also obviously talked about The Apocalypse Box, where he plays the evil politician Piers Stonesmith, and definitely revels in playing such a villainous character. Enjoy. Why become an actor? What made you do that?
Oh my lord! How far back do you want to go? I think it started at school, really, to be honest. I think there was an English teacher called Mike Rice who realised that I was a little bit of a wayward energy, and he decided that might work. It might work if he put me in a school play, and it worked, and that's where it all started. And I realised quite early on there was a time when I was walking to school for rehearsals after school, and I thought, wow, this is the only time that I can imagine I would actually enjoy going back to school after everyone had finished and not thinking, what the hell are you doing? And that was that. And then I did another school play. As a teenage schoolboy, I did Spring Awakening by, I think it was Vederkind, which is a very, very complicated piece. And I think it was way beyond my ken at the time. But we did it, and I enjoyed it. And then I failed all my A-levels and then went to retake them at a tech college, and I did more plays there. And I remember I was going to do anthropology and law and French at university. That was the idea. But that didn't kind of really do it for me. And I remember walking back from the tech college one day, it was 6 o'clock in the evening, it was winter because it was dark, and under a street lamp I had a thought. If I could do acting for a living, why not do that? Because it was the only thing I really, really enjoyed consistently over the years while I was at school. I remember being under a street lamp at the time because it struck me that this was like a light bulb moment. But I had a really big light bulb in the form of a street lamp under which I had this moment. So, that was where it all began, really.
Did you then change what you studied? Did you do drama school, or did you just quit that and start trying to find an agent? What was your next step?
I got an audition for Manchester Poly School of Theatre, and they accepted me. Stayed in Manchester for a couple of years, and I got the bill in 91. No, I left in 86. And stayed in Manchester for a couple of years, came down to London, found my feet, and I got the bill in 91. I was working at the Royal Exchange in Manchester, and there was a guy, George Sweeney, there, who said, why don't I write to Julian Oldfield at the Bill? He's always looking for new people to come and join the show. So I wrote to Julian Oldfield, and I said that I was looking for a job in television, and I'd be just right for a policeman. And he got me in, and they took me on.
And I've looked at, obviously I've done my cyber stalking, looked at you on IMDb, Wikipedia, all that malarkey, and it's got 475 episodes of The Bill and 452 episodes of Doctors, which is insane. Having spoken to Corin about how often Doctors was on, was The Bill 3 times a week? I'm trying to remember from my childhood.
I think when I started, it was, they did a repeat of an episode in the week, because I remember when I arrived, there was a little bit of a hoo-ha about negotiation for pay, because people had negotiated their new contracts and hadn't included the fact that we were losing a repeat fee because they'd stopped repeating it in the week. So I think there were the broadcasts were cut, and they did film it a lot more slowly than Doctors. So in 1 week, you could probably film about 3 episodes of Doctors. Where, mind you, they did 3 episodes a week of the bill. There were 3 units doing 3 separate episodes every week. It was so. Yeah, I don't understand how many. Why there were so. Mind you, no, Corinne did more episodes of Doctors than I did. She started earlier.
And at the time, obviously back then with both those TV shows, there was less TV shows, less stuff out there, so a lot more people had eyes on it. Fewer TV shows.
Fewer TV shows.
What was it like being in a primetime show? And did you speak to many police people? Did police love it? Did they hate it? How did they get on with it?
Well, having had nothing to compare it to, it was a great education. It was like arriving somewhere very special, and it was a kind of excitement being small time famous, really. But I kind of knew that I wasn't really famous because there were people receiving Oscars and stuff who were obviously a lot more famous than I was. But yeah, it was very exciting to be earning money, being a policeman, enjoying the glamour of TV. I didn't know any different. I had no experience, so I had nothing to compare it to. I was being paid to do what I love to do, which was fantastic. And yes, we did go out with the police. I went out with the police in the cars. I think they looked on us not with disdain or contempt, but it was sort of in that direction. I don't think they really admired us particularly. I remember being told that the bill was used in police training is to show examples of how not to do things, and to explain to the police how the general public completely misperceived what the police work was all about, and this is why, run tape. I don't know. Yeah, they. I suppose we were good for the police because we put them in a good light. We got the general public in some ways maybe to look at them with a sympathetic eye, which can't be bad if you're a police officer, I suppose. And I actually got to swear at a policeman and get away with it because I was on the bill. The Queen was coming to Brixton, where I was living at the time, and the police had moved my car. They put it on rollers and moved it round the corner, and I went round to go to work in the morning, and the car wasn't there, and a police officer told me that they moved it round the corner. And I said, "Fuck off." And I thought, I wouldn't have got away with that possibly in the way that I did had I not been a policeman on telly.
There you go. Hidden benefits. And then, having done all those episodes, have you got a favourite episode? Have you got a favourite storyline you're involved in?
The one that comes to mind was the chase. There was a chase where I did a lot of driving, and I was very flattered to be allowed to do a lot of my own driving. I remember I was allowed to drive a car at speed I had to drive towards a corner and then zoof off. And I was, there was a whole camera crew and the camera and the director and the lighting people. I was driving at them. They were on the corner, and I thought, that wouldn't be allowed now. I wouldn't be allowed to do half the things I did. We actually did what were called up and pasts, where the camera was set off down the street, and we were in the police car with a blue light. We weren't allowed a siren, but we would go into real traffic with a blue light on, and if it moved, we would find the gap and go through it. That wouldn't be allowed now. But I think the driving, that was my favourite part, being allowed to drive. I was actually stopped by a police car once and asked me what the hell I was doing because the camera was so far away. He didn't know what was going on. He was very cross that this police car had been driving erratically that had no markings that he recognised. So I had to explain that I wasn't real.
Yes, I can imagine. I watched a clip of an episode today where you... Hang on, I've got this right. You didn't push someone out of a building. They fell out of a building. And the drama was you worrying about them thinking you'd done it? Do you even remember that episode, or do they all just blur for you?
Now, I think I remember that episode because there is a photograph I have of that. It was a green barn door on the first floor of somewhere.
There's a fight scene as well.
Yeah, I remember the fight scene. I remember a comment from the stunt arranger on that fight scene because I got a bit of a crick in my neck, and he said, "Yeah, well, you have to be wary because the adrenaline goes." And I thought, "Yeah, but you're a stunt arranger. You're paid to handle adrenaline, so don't crick me neck when we do that." I thought. I don't think I said it out loud, but I just remember thinking that thought. But yes, I remember there was a lot of roughy tufty in that show, and a lot of the time we had to do it over and over again because you do it for that angle and then you have to do it again for that angle because a lot of the time we went out with one camera. So if they wanted several angles, we'd all have to do the action all over again several times. And at the end of a particularly rough sequence, we would more often than not all be, "Oh, you're all right, dear. I didn't hit you, did I? I didn't make contact. Sorry if I did." And it just seemed very ludicrous that we were being these rough police officers beating each other up, and they say, "Oh, you're all right, dear," at the end of it. But hey ho, that's how it works behind the scenes.
So I asked Corinne about this earlier. Obviously, you've worked on a ton of episodes of television. Remembering your lines, do you do anything different to her? Have you got a special technique to get them down?
Well, thankfully with television, the stress of having to absolutely get it right all the time is mitigated by the fact that there's an edit. But having said that, the Bill liked to do quite long takes. So there was pressure, but fortunately the writing was good. And good writing is easier to remember because it makes sense to a brain a lot of the time. But repetition and repetition mainly, repetition, just going over and over and over and over it. I don't know, maybe you do develop a skill as an actor that you're not really aware of. I'm not sure I know how to explain it apart from repetition. It kind of gets easier and they do strangely sink in after a while. I don't necessarily remember lines so much as thoughts, trains of thought. And if it's a scene that's sort of well written, it's easier to remember trains of thought, and the words kind of happen as a result of that. But you have to remember them and then forget them, which is always a bit tricky because remembering them again can be
the thing I find, funnily enough, is when I've written something, obviously I write it and I can hear it being spoken on the page. Then one of you guys delivers it. So say one of Piers' big speeches. Then that's how I hear it forever because obviously I'm editing, so I'm seeing it over and over again. And now it is, you know what I mean? It's in cement. If I could probably remember those lines better than you now. I don't know. You've probably just erased them all. But for me now, because I've watched it so many times.
No, yes. I mean, my experience is different from yours. You hear it from the outside, and yes, I forget constantly. I've forgotten all the things I've said. It's funny. The actor's dream happens, and the actor's dream is essentially entering the performance space at a performance time, not knowing your lines, or just approaching that moment, and then you wake up and you never have to face it. But there's that fear of suddenly realizing I don't know what I'm doing, which is horrible. And I've had that. I've had that quite a lot recently. I don't know what that's meant to mean. Usually, I don't get it when I'm working. It's only when you're not working and dreaming about work that you have these thoughts. But they're quite. They're quite odd.
The scary version of that, I think, is probably in a theatre play, is it? When you're suddenly, crap, I've just lost it. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, yes, that has happened. I was doing a production of The Ghost Train. And at the end of The Ghost Train, the person who played the silly fop, who is also the detective, reveals himself as the detective. And he has a long speech where he tells everybody what was actually going on and who was doing what. And no one can help him out if he forgets his lines because he's the only one who's meant to know all this stuff. And we had a very short rehearsal period for this particular production. And those words for that speech at the end just didn't stick properly. And there were several performances at Basingstoke, I seem to remember it was, where time stopped and the words weren't there, and there was a blank in my head. There was a desert, there was tumbleweed, there were people looking at me on stage, there were people in the audience looking at me in expectation, and nothing was coming. I don't really know how it ended. Obviously, the play did end eventually, and something happened, and maybe some gibberish came to pass. Those are ghastly moments, absolutely horrible moments. But no one's firing bullets at you, and you're not going to lose a limb as a result of these things. So you can worry too much, but at the time, if you're trying to do your best and it's not possible, it's ghastly.
And spare a thought for the poor
Horrible
people of Basingstoke, having come to see you and get the gibberish for that big finale.
Well, I think the poor people of Basingstoke actually quite enjoy when actors screw up, because they think I was there when that actor screwed up, and it's kind of it makes the ticket worth paying for. Because perfection's all very well, but a little bit of a cock-up's also good
definitely,
to watch.
Definitely. So do you, I know you, well, from what I hear, you do theatre, a lot of sort of theatre plays, that kind of stuff. Do you still have to audition, or do you go, oh, I've done this, that and the other, and they go, oh, cool, we'll take you? Or do you get those theatre gigs through friends or, people you've worked with before?
Most of my theatre work I have got through an audition that an early agent got me, and they've used me again and again, which has been very good. That's Middle Ground Theatre Company and Pat Kearns at Talking Scarlet. Strangely, I've got an interview tomorrow for a job to play General Waverley in White Christmas at the Mill at Sonning, and I have to go for an interview for that. Yes, always interview. I've only ever once, I think, been offered a job without an interview, and that was for a couple of lines in Belgravia. My agent wanted to impress somebody that I don't know what he was trying to do actually, but he got me that job without having to see anybody. I mean, I've got a show reel, so people who employ me for television have got a pretty good idea of whether I can hit a mark and deliver a line or not, I guess, just because there's a whole load of TV stuff out there. But no, I think people just generally want to know what you're like in the room. Well, I haven't had an in-room interview for 1,000 years. It's all self-tapes. Maybe my career's coming to an end. I don't know.
Is this your swan song, this podcast? What a way to go, eh?
You've
no, you're going to get it. You're definitely going to get it. So, flipping it on its head, and you do not include me in this because I don't want to know. But tips for directors. Say I'm making my first. I'm coming out of uni. I'm making my first feature film. What would be your tips to a new director to work with actors?
That's a tricky one. I don't know that it's really my place to give directors tips. I give actors tips. What would I tell a director? Don't do that. Your relationship with a director as an actor is very situation specific. I mean, the advice you want to give a director is dependent on what's happening at the time on set. And if a director is doing a particular thing, you might want to give them some advice about doing that thing in that way, in your eye line, in your earshot or something. Yes, it's very case specific. I don't know if there's any general. We are not furniture, mind you. That's more for firsts than directors. There was a first on the bill who used to move us around like filing cabinets that got a bit tedious. You know, if you weren't sitting on our marks, that's time pressure, I suppose, and money and stuff. But it's not nice being treated like furniture. I don't know. Just don't treat me like an idiot. Treat me as a person with skills. treat me as you would like to be treated. But then again, that goes for any job.
Do you think the fact that you guys have both done a lot of television has, I might be imagining this, but hardened you a bit to that director relationship, in that some actors like a lot of conversation? Do you guys, because you've done the TV and you've got to kind of keep moving quickly, do you think you're able to kind of get on without that? Or, some actors get offended if you say, do it a bit faster or do it a bit more angry. Is that enough for you, or do you prefer a bit more?
I think, well, I suppose having worked with as many directors as I have, we're not surprised by some of the things that directors say in the way that someone without that experience might be. I know what directors are capable of saying, but I think possibly the reason I've spent or survived so long in television might be because, well, this particular kind of production line television, which is quite fast, might be because I am happy to throw stuff out and just try it. But that's always been my way of doing things. Even at drama school, there were people who liked to talk, but my favourite directors were directors who said, "No, stop talking, stand up, do it, give it a go, see what happens." And that's how it works when I'm doing stuff with my hands and tools and woodwork. Rather than sort of draw it and design it, I'll sort of make a version of it and see if it works, see how it goes together, and then I'll make another version, see how that goes together. And that's sort of how I approach the work rather than intellectualize it. I don't know how I would survive a 7-8 week rehearsal process at the National where you talk things to death. I'd just be thinking, get up, do it, do something. Let's do something. Let's just do something. And that was the philosophy at Manchester, was get up and do it. Just do it. You see how it feels, see what works and what doesn't. Because talking about it's all very well, but it's doing it that people come to see.
Yeah, definitely. And is there a piece of advice? What's the sort of best piece of advice someone's given you about acting?
Someone's given me about acting. Yeah, do it. I think it's the getting up and doing it and giving it a go. Just do it and give it a go. Try it different ways. Just worry it, like like people worry it poems. They just worry them. Wiggle your tooth, it'll come out. Something will happen. Yeah, do it.
The film we've got coming out in August, The Apocalypse Box.
Yes.
Tell me about your character in the film.
My character is a horribly narcissistic, ambitious egomaniac who wants to rule the world, a bit like Nigel Farage, who pretends that he wants to represent Clacton, but he actually wants to brown-nose President Trump. I'll rephrase that. It reminds me very much of a Farage-type character who pretends that he wants to represent the people of Clacton, but he wants to represent himself as an aide to the soon-to-be inaugurated President Trump. We won't see him for dust if Trump gets in. Yes, but that is Mr. Stonesmith. He's ghastly.
And is it? I mean, everyone says it is, but is it fun to play that kind of part? That sort of villainous, the baddie. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you get to play with the explosives. You get to kind of, I don't know why it should be so fun to be bad. I suppose we grow up with a whole weight on us if we do the things that you do when you play a baddie. You're not allowed to do it. It's like going through a door marked private, no entry, stay out of here, and you're being given the opportunity to go through all these doors marked private, stay out. Don't go here. You're allowed to say the quiet bit out loud. Do all the horrible things that you're not allowed to say. Because also another part of me, I realized as I was growing up, is a person who, in any situation, immediately thinks of the most offensive, horrible thing I could say. And I'm not allowed to say it. But when you play a baddie, that you are allowed to say it. And sometimes you're even allowed to come up with an idea to say something even more offensive. And they go, "Oh, yeah, that's nasty. That's well horrible. Yeah, we'll have that."
The film itself, you've seen it. what would you say to somebody to get them to go and see it, or to watch it, to download it and watch it?
I'd say if you really are a fan of mine, I'm absolutely brilliant
True,
in this.
that's true.
Forget everyone else. Come and see me. You'll love it. And I get an hand, which was thrilling. But I'd say, yeah, it's if you like a thriller with a bit of gore and suspense and unusualness, because it is a slightly unusual film, as
Thank
are
you.
all your films, I think. Yeah, go and see it.
Cool.
Are you going to keep the in it?
I am, and yeah, I am.
But
Well,
why?
I've thought about this a lot, actually, because obviously without the, you're an A, which puts you right at the top of the alphabet. So if someone's searching for you on a platform where it's just alphabetical, obviously you've got more chance of appearing straight away. But I just feel like it sounds a bit funny to me, Apocalypse Box, on its own. I like those old 80s, 70s horrors, The Omen. Do you know what I mean? It wouldn't, if it was Omen, it wouldn't have had the same kind of gravitas. It sort of sets it up. The Apocalypse Box. The Jaws. There you go, that one. The Jaws too.
Right,
I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you'd like to hear from more industry professionals, how they got into the business and how you can do the same, or you just want to listen to some cool stories from movie sets around the world, then please do subscribe to the Honest Filmmaker podcast.